Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video I'll be teaching you how to make these two pieces that you can see on the thumbnail. So we'll start by drafting out the shirt part. For the shirt part, I'll be taking 2 inches for my placket. So I'm going to mark 2 inches all the way to the end of the pattern paper, and I'm going to connect all the dots into a straight line. After doing that, I'm going to bring in the other paper, which is going to serve as the back. This particular one is for the front, so I'm going to place the back pattern paper on the front pattern paper after the 2 inches line. Okay, after placing it, I used my pin to hold it down, and then I'm going to go ahead and start taking my points. The first point is the distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my waist point, which is 16 inches, and the last point is the length of my shirt, which is 23.5 inches. So I'm going to rule straight lines across the point. After doing that, I'll take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. Please note that the 2 inches for the placket is not included in the 8 inches. So I took the 8 inches after the 2 inches, okay? After doing that, I went down by 1.5 inches for my shoulder slope on that 8 inches point, and I slanted into the neckline area. The next thing I did was to take my armhole depth. I'm working with 7.5 inches. So on that 7.5 inches, I ruled another straight line across. This particular line is going to serve as my chest line. The second line is my bust line. The third line is my waistline, while the length of the pattern paper is my shirt length. The next thing I did was to place the same 8 inches that I have on the shoulder line. I placed it on the chest line. So whatever half of your shoulder measurement is, place it back on the chest line and connect the 2 dots into a straight line like this. After doing that, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line. I'm going to indicate that with a dot. I'll add 1 inch for my ease allowance, and I'll add another 1 inch for my stitching allowance. As you can see on the thumbnail, the shirt is kind of tight, so if you want yours tight, you can just do half an inch as your ease allowance. But if you want it a little bit loose, you can do the 1 inch for ease allowance. Okay, so it depends on what you want. After doing that, I'll place my tape on this straight line and I'll divide it into 2 equal halves. So I'll go ahead and mark the center as you can see me doing, and then I'm going to connect from the center now to the point that I have on the chest line, just like this. After doing that, I'm going to take my neck width measurement. For the width, I'll be using 2.5. okay, that is how open I want the neckline to be. And for the depth of the back, I'll be using 1.5 inches, and for the front I'll be using 2 inches. Okay, so I'm marking that of the front. I'm going to connect it using my ruler, as you can see. After doing that, I'll also connect the back. Okay, the back depth is going to be 1 inch. Okay, so I'm doing all of this together because the front pattern and the back pattern are placed on each other. So I'm going to take the back depth now, which is going to be 1 inch. So the width for the two is 2.5 inches, the depth for the front is 2 inches, while the depth for the back is 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to connect the depth for the back to meet the neck width, as you can see. So when I'm cutting, I'll cut out the back first. Okay, so after doing that, you can see that the blouse is fitted on the waist area. Usually when cutting out a shirt, you don't have to add your waistline, but this shirt is fitted, so that is why I have my waistline here. So what I did was to place my waist circumference divided by 4. I added 1 inch for ease, and I added 1 inch for stitching allowance. So what I'll do now is to connect from the bust line down to the waistline. On the blouse length, I'm going to place my hip circumference divided by 4, and then I'll also add 1 inch for stitching allowance and another 1 inch for ease allowance. Next thing I'll do is to connect from the waist all the way to the shirt length using this cut part of my roller. Okay, so after connecting, this is what I have. The next thing I'll do now is to go up from the shirt length by 1.5 inches. You can do more than that. I want to give it that slanted shape that you can see on the side. Okay, then you're going to use your roller to connect from that point into the center of the shirt. Okay, so just look at the way I'm placing my roller, and I'm connecting in a curve all the way like this. So when cutting, I'm going to cut this part out. Okay, So after doing that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut. So I'll be cutting out the back neckline first. After cutting out the armhole area, I'll cut out the back neckline, and then I'm going to remove the back. Sorry, I'll remove the back and I'll trim out the front neckline. So the difference between the front and the back is the neckline and the plackets. Okay, so after cutting out the front neckline, I'm going to place the pattern paper back together and I'll trim off the shoulder area like this. So after doing that, guys, that is all for the drafting of the shirt. So I'm going to label my patterns, the front and the back. For the short pants, I'll be cutting out the front first, and I already have my pattern paper. So what I'll do is to take out 1.5 inches before I start placing my point. So I'll be adding a band of 1.5 inches to my pants. So before I start placing my point, I'll take out the 1.5 inches and then I'll replace it later using the band. So the first point I'll take is distance from my waist to my hip point, which is 8.5 inches. So I marked 8.5 inches and I ruled a straight line across. So the start of the pattern paper is my waistline. This particular line is my hip line. The next thing I'll do is to take my crotch line. So the video showing on the screen is how I normally take my crotch depth, and it works for me. Okay, so I place my tape as you can see me doing, and whatever I get, I divide it by 2 and I place it. So another way to get your crotch depth is to divide your hip by 6 and you add 1.5 inches to that measurement. But this particular video that I just showed you is what I normally use. Okay, so after doing that, what I got was 13 inches. So I took out the 1.5 inches for the band and I went down by 13 inches and I ruled a straight line across. So this new line is my crotch depth. Okay, the next thing I'll do is to mark the length of my pants. So you're going to determine how long you want your pant to be. For me, I'm making mine 17 inches. So I took out the 1.5 inches and I went down my 17 inches and I ruled a straight line across. After doing that, I'm going to be adding 1 inch to my pants length for my folding allowance on the base of the pants, and I'll also rule straight lines across and label my lines accordingly. The next thing I'll do is to place my hip circumference divided by 4 on the waistline. Okay, I'll also place the same measurement on the hip line and I'll place the same measurement on the crotch line. Okay, after doing that, I'll connect the 3 dots into a straight line. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to get my crotch extension line. To do that, I'm going to place my tape on the crotch line, and whatever I get, I'm going to divide it by 4. So what I have is 9 inches. I'm going to divide the 9 inches by 4 and it gave me about 2¼ inch. So what I normally do is I approximate the 2¼ inch and just make it 3 inches. So I'm going to place 3 inches from that straight line. After the straight line, okay, I'll go out by 3 inches. So this is going to be my crotch extension line. After doing that, I'll use my ruler to connect from the hip line down to the crotch extension line. So you don't have to make this part really deep. Okay, just look at the way I'm placing my ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can use your free hand to just connect it. Make sure it's not too deep and it's not too straight. Okay, so after connecting, this is what I have. The next thing I will do now is to place my waist circumference divided by 4 on the waistline, as you can see. Okay, after doing that, I'm going to add 1 inch for my dart intake. So I'm going to go out by 1 inch and I'll connect from there now to the hip line. So I already have my hip circumference divided by 4 on the hip line, so I'm not going to place any measurements on the hip line. Okay, so after connecting, this is what I have. Usually when cutting out a pants, you are supposed to place your tie line, and my tie line is always 4 inches below my crotch line, which is now the length of my pants. So that is why I did not place my tie line. So what I'll do now is to place my round thigh circumference divided by 2. You are dividing by 2, not by 4, okay? So I placed that, and then I'm going to add my ease allowance of about 1.5 inches, okay? So after doing that, I'll connect from my crotch extension all the way down, as you can see. So I added this allowance of 1.5 inches. So after connecting, this is what I have. The next thing I'll do is to take my dart. So I'm going in by 4 inches from the center of my pants, and I'm going to go down by 3 inches, which is going to be the length of my dart. After doing that, I'll connect into a straight line, and I'll take half an inch on both sides of the straight line. Remember, I left just 1 inch for my dart intake, so half an inch on the left and half an inch on the right. After doing that, I'll connect to the dart length, as you can see me doing. So I'm going to take in my dart like this on my fabric, okay? After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. So I'm cutting from the allowance that I left on the base. I'm also going to cut out the crotch line and the excess pattern paper on the waistline. After cutting, this is what I have. I'll place my tape on the length of my pants, and because I don't want the base to be big, I'm going to come in by 1 inch on this other end, and I'll connect it upward, okay? I don't want the base to be too wide, so I'm going to connect it upward, as you can see. So this is optional, you don't have to do this, okay? So I'm going to trim off this part of the pants, okay? So now that we are done cutting the front, we'll be using the front to cut out the back. So I have a fresh pattern paper here, and I'm going to leave enough allowance on the crotch area. I'm leaving like 3 inches, and on the upper part also I'm leaving about 1.5 inches. So the back of the pants is usually bigger than the front of the pants, so that is why I'm leaving all this allowance. So the next thing I'll do now is to add allowance to the crotch area, okay? So this allowance I'm adding will help my butt sit really well in the pants. So I'm adding 2 inches on the crotch lines, on the crotch area, sorry. So it depends on how big you are. For me, I'm adding just 2 inches. So I'm going to extend the crotch line into the new pattern paper, as you can see. So for the crotch, I already extended the crotch on the new pattern paper by 3 inches. So I just used my ruler to connect all the way up, as you can see. So the next thing I'll do now is to go up by 1.5 inches from the front waistline, okay, which is the allowance I already left, and I'm going to measure what I have on the front waistline, which is about 7.5 inches. I'm going to place the 7.5 inches now from the extension line that I have, okay? So I'm placing it in a slant, as you can see my tape. I'm going to mark the 7.5 inches, and I will indicate it where it stopped. So the next thing I'll do is to place my ruler in a slant, like you can see, and I'll connect from the extension down to the new 7.5 inches on this new pattern paper, okay? So if you don't understand what I'm doing, I'm saying, you can just follow what I am doing. So now that I've connected my waistline, I'm going to indicate the hip line so I know where it is on this new pattern paper, and then I'll remove my pins and I'll raise the front pattern paper up, okay? So this is the waistline for the back now. What I'll do is to place my ruler. I'll connect from the waistline now to the hip line that I indicated. So the front and the back waistline is different because of the extension that I have on the crotch line for the back, okay? So after connecting, make sure your connection is not too sharp, okay? Just try as much as possible to blend everything in. So I placed the front on the back. I'm going to trace out the other parts of the pants, okay? That is the side. Everything remains the same aside the waistline, okay? So I'm going to connect and cut out, okay? After cutting, I'm going to extend this part by 1.5 inches also. That is the base of the pant, and I'm going to connect from the crotch extension all the way to the base like this. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. So after cutting, guys, this is what I have for the pant. So the next thing I'll do now is to take the dart, okay? I'm going to take the dart for the back. So I'm going to remove the front pattern paper and I'm going to label the back, and then I'm going to take the dart. So for the dart, I'll first of all take out about 1 inch. Okay, from that 1 inch point, I'm going to go in by 4 inches, which is half of my nipple to nipple measurement. I will indicate the 4 inches with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to go down by 4 inches for the length of the dart. So the length of the dart for the back is 4 inches, while that of the front is 3 inches. So I'm going to connect into a straight line like this. After doing that, I'm going to take half an inch on both sides of the dart. Okay, so I did not add stitching allowance to this pattern paper. I'm going to do that when I'm cutting on my fabric. Okay, so that is all for the pattern drafting tutorial. See you guys in the sewing tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and leave your questions in the comment section.